It finally happened! The daemon list allowed the hack click between frames for all list records. In this video, I'll be covering how Pointercrate came to this decision, how it will affect the game in the future, and arguments for and against this decision. So, what is click between frames? Basically, it's a hack that bypasses the need for higher FPS for better physics. In vanilla GD, let's say you're at 240 FPS, the game registers your inputs on those frames. Click between frames, as you can probably guess from the name, allows you to click between these frames and it be registered without you having to wait. The reason this is so huge is that there's no need for you to run a level at high FPS to access more responsive and accurate physics. The best way to look at this mod is an upgraded version of FPS bypass. So what are the arguments against Pointercrate allowing click between frames? Well, Robtop does not condone the use of the mod, as shown by the comments he made on the topic in the Geometry Dash Discord server. Would you rate verifications using CBF? Not using the mod, no. Of course I could make a mistake if I don't know it's CBF verified, but overall, no. So, is the current CBF cheating and ban-worthy? I'm against anything that changes the physics right now, and that's what I've said to the mods. Best thing for the game is if all players can complete everything, at least technically. Then what people do with that info is up to them. Levels not being rated if verified using the mod is somewhat of a problem, and the daemon list definitely considered it. Either place unrated levels on the list so Robtop's input doesn't have an impact on Pointercrate, or have verifying levels be much harder than just beating them normally. Now, I don't think this is much of an issue. Robtop is very open to not wanting anything to do with top play, so I don't see the problem with just placing unrated levels. There could still be a standard on what levels could place on the list. I don't know, maybe you make it so it has to at least be decorated to some degree, but obviously don't allow like redecos of existing levels and stuff like that. Right now, this whole rating system in Robtop is just a burden and a hindrance to the list. I really do think it would be better for all the players if Pointercrate committed to going away from him. In other games like Super Mario 64 speedruns, the developers' thoughts on glitches, wanting them to be eradicated from their games, are simply ignored by the player base, and they prioritise the fun they have. I don't think GD is all that different. Obviously, speedrunning and glitches are different to Geometry Dash and using a hack, but the logic of following a developer's orders just because they say it is, to be frank, silly. Robtop also announced that he would be working on his own version of the hack to have it in the vanilla game. This is very beneficial for a large amount of players, particularly on mobile, because as of right now, mobile players don't even have access to the implemented FPS bypass that came with the 2.2 update. Hey, is CBF going to be added? I've been working a little on my own version for a while to get cross-platform bug-free, so everyone has access. If everything works the way I want it, I will include, but nothing official yet. It's not the same as the stuff people are using now, but similar. Still unsure if it will work on all platforms the way I want, so don't get your hopes up. So yeah, this doesn't look particularly good. As with FPS bypass and other hacks which Robtop attempted to implement, it will likely be much worse than the CBF we have access to right now, as he says. If it does get added to vanilla, I'm still going to use CBF because of this. It seems that the only thing stopping Rob adding it to vanilla is mobile players, which is really sad honestly. People will probably argue with that and say, mobile players can't have it, so it's unfair. I think this is where Pointercrate is separate from the star leaderboards. I don't really think mobile and Mac players not having access to the mod really matters that much at all. Mobile is already much worse than PC. As far as I remember, the hardest level beaten on mobile is Aerial Gleam, and that level is only the 46th hardest level beaten on PC. If PC is 15 times better than mobile, allowing CBF makes PC 16 times better. I don't think it being somewhat unfair to the 1 or 2 list players is a very good reason. Robtop has said that Pointercrate can do what they want because they are unofficial, which is a good stance to take. I understand not allowing CBF for stars, because mobile players do have an opportunity to actually compete with highly ranked PC players. In that case, the unfair advantage does actually make a difference. But for Pointercrate, as I've said, it is a harsh reality that mobile players will always be disadvantaged, unless some severe technological advancements are made. Other than these, the only thing I've heard people say is that it changes too much and isn't vanilla. Well, I would simply ask why that matters. There's not really an argument there, that's just a personal opinion. If you don't want to use the mod out of preference, go ahead. but asking everyone else to do the same just because of this preference is rather selfish and silly. So why should it be allowed? Well, first of all, the arguments against it are just rather silly in my opinion, and there's so much benefit to it. The game would be much less reliant on how well you can run a level, as frame rate won't matter that much, making the game much fairer than otherwise proposed. It would be the final gameplay change we need to make using hacks, as it almost entirely fixes Robtop's bad coding. And as long as hacks are good for the game and the majority want it to be allowed, then go for it. Having an enjoyable playing experience should be the priority in my opinion. The decision to go ahead and allow click between frames was discussed among the list team for quite some time. The first people to actually allow the mod would be the all-rated Extreme Demon List, a demon list not as popular as Pointer Crate, which ranks all 1,000 extreme demons in the game. This was following a poll they conducted. They asked the players whether they wanted it allowed. The poll returned 83% yes, 17% no, and that was more than enough to know to allow the mod. Now, a few weeks before, Pointer Crate also asked their community whether they wanted it allowed. They wouldn't publish these results and said that the poll results wouldn't necessarily be used in informing a decision. After they read or listened to their community and people were happy they did, I think that encouraged Pointer Crate to make a decision. And they did. They published the poll results and announced the mod as allowed. This time, 87% of the general community said it should be allowed, and 80% of list players said it should be allowed. Accompanied with the announcement of the mod being allowed, a whole document regarding their reasoning was published. And if you read through it, they give the same arguments for its allowing, and the same rebuttals I used to the arguments against CBF which people had been using for quite some time. If you would like to read it all, it will be linked in the description. So now what? Where does the future of GD go? Well, I can confidently say that skill will be pushed much farther than previously possible. The advantage is certainly one big enough to do that. When it was allowed by the challenge list, if you have watched my video regarding that, multiple top verifications, along with a huge increase in the amount of list completions, were a consequence of allowing the mod. And it seems like pretty good evidence that the same will happen with Pointer Crate, which is great. Doggy is quite publicly using CBF for his verification of grief, and I can imagine if Pointer Crate were to allow unrated levels, they would do it when Doggy verifies grief. It would be next to impossible for them to ignore the inevitable backlash Pointer Crate, and Robtop for the matter, would face if the new hardest level wasn't being placed. This is exactly what happened with Tidal Wave, so I don't see why it wouldn't be the case. Anyways, that's all from me. My most recent video was a documentary on Trick and how he became the #1 player, and it's probably my best video, so go give that a watch.